Welcome to Curiosity TV. Subscribe and press the bell icon for more updates. West Philippine Sea is now a flashpoint, a place where tensions simmer just beneath the surface, threatening to boil over at any moment. Every resupply mission to the BRP Sierra Madre at Ayungin Shoal is a high-stakes gamble, with Filipino sailors braving not just the elements, but the very real risk of confrontation with a much larger adversary. Chinese Coast Guard vessels, imposing and relentless, block and harass Philippine patrol boats, using their size and numbers to intimidate and control the contested waters. Water cannons blast across the waves, and ramming incidents have become almost routine, dangerous maneuvers that endanger Filipino crews and send a chilling message of dominance and intimidation. Blockades not only cut off Filipino fishermen from their traditional fishing grounds, but also isolate the Sierra Madre's defenders, leaving them vulnerable and alone in the vast expanse of the sea. These are not random acts of aggression. They're part of a calculated gray zone campaign, a strategy designed to wear down Philippine resolve, to test the limits of patience and endurance, all without triggering open war. China's goal is clear: to make defending Philippine rights so costly and exhausting that resistance seems futile, asserting its sweeping claims over the sea without ever firing a shot. But Filipino sailors aren't just defending a distant shoal. They're standing up for the principle of a rules-based order, for the right of every nation, big or small, to chart its own course. The stakes are enormous. Sovereignty, territorial integrity, and the future of the nation's maritime resources hang in the balance, with every decision carrying weight for generations to come. The West Philippine Sea is rich in fish, oil, and natural gas, resources that are vital not just for today's economy, but for the long-term security and prosperity of the Filipino people. These waters hold the promise of energy independence and food security, making them a lifeline for millions of Filipinos. Surrendering these waters would mean losing a critical part of the national patrimony, a loss that would echo through history and diminish the nation's future. Each standoff is more than just a headline. It's a direct challenge to the Philippines' existence as a maritime nation, a test of its will and unity. The government in Manila faces mounting pressure, both from its people and the international community, to find a new strategy that can safeguard the nation's interests without escalating the conflict. The world is watching closely, as every move and countermove could redefine the region's balance of power and set a precedent for how disputes are resolved in the 21st century. The question remains: how far will the Philippines go to defend its future, and what price is it willing to pay to protect its place in the world? As maritime tensions escalate in the South China Sea, the region is witnessing an unprecedented surge in confrontations and uncertainty. In response, a bold idea is gaining ground in the Philippine Congress: rejoining the International Criminal Court, or ICC, after years of absence. This move is sparking intense debate and renewed hope among many Filipinos. Lawmakers and legal experts now see the ICC not just as a venue for addressing past human rights abuses, but as a powerful strategic tool to counter China's growing aggression in disputed waters. The argument is clear: if traditional diplomacy and maritime patrols continue to fall short, then international law might offer a stronger, more credible shield for the country's interests. China's recent actions, ramming Filipino boats, deploying water cannons, and depriving local fishermen of their livelihood, could potentially be framed as crimes against humanity under international law, raising the stakes for all involved. By rejoining the ICC, the Philippines would gain the ability to file formal complaints against Chinese officials, shifting the ongoing conflict from dangerous maritime standoffs to the courtroom, where evidence and legal arguments take center stage. Diplomatic protests have largely been ignored, and even joint patrols with allies have failed to significantly alter China's behavior or deter further incidents at sea. Turning to the legal route could help level the playing field, relying on the power of law and the weight of global public opinion, rather than military might alone, to assert the Philippines' rights. For advocates, this is more than just a legal maneuver. It's a declaration of faith in a rules-based international order, one that seeks to hold even the most powerful nations accountable for their actions. It's a high-stakes gamble, but one that many believe is necessary to protect the country's sovereignty, dignity, and the future of its people. The debate is urgent, the atmosphere tense, and the stakes could not be higher. National security and the nation's standing in the world hang in the balance. Now, the Philippines faces a critical decision: stick with old strategies that have yielded little progress, or open a bold new legal front in the ongoing struggle for justice and sovereignty. In 2016, the Philippines achieved a historic legal victory at The Hague, marking a pivotal moment in the long-standing dispute over the South China Sea. The world watched as the Permanent Court of Arbitration delivered its decision, a moment of hope and celebration for many Filipinos. The tribunal's ruling invalidated China's sweeping 9-line claim and firmly affirmed the Philippines' sovereign rights within its exclusive economic zone in the West Philippine Sea. It was a clear message that international law stood on the side of smaller nations, yet despite the clarity and binding nature of the ruling, China rejected it outright, dismissing the verdict and escalating its activities in the disputed waters. Tensions only grew as China doubled down on its presence. The Hague Tribunal, for all its authority, had no enforcement power, no mechanism to compel China to comply. The victory was legal, but not practical. In the years that followed, China rapidly built artificial islands, militarized disputed features, and harassed Filipino fishermen, pushing them out of their traditional fishing grounds. The legal win became a frustrating paradox, a celebrated victory in court, but a series of painful setbacks at sea. The promise of justice felt increasingly hollow for those on the front lines. Chinese maritime militia swarmed Philippine-held areas, using so-called gray zone tactics, intimidation, swarming, and overwhelming force without open conflict, to assert control and pressure Filipino forces. The 2016 ruling established rights on paper, but it did not create accountability or change the reality on the water. Now, advocates and legal experts argue that the next step is to hold individuals personally responsible for violating those rights, turning to the International Criminal Court for action. The ICC cannot enforce territorial claims, but it can prosecute crimes committed in pursuit of those claims, offering a new avenue for justice and accountability. If Chinese officials were to face personal consequences, such as prosecution or sanctions, it could serve as a powerful deterrent against future acts of aggression and intimidation. The unfulfilled promise of 2016 continues to fuel the push for a new legal weapon, as frustration grows over the lack of real-world change. Today, the Philippines seeks not just international recognition, but meaningful, tangible consequences for violations, hoping that justice will finally move from the courtroom to the contested waters themselves. ICC membership could transform the West Philippine Sea dispute. The court prosecutes individuals, not states, meaning Chinese officials could face arrest warrants for acts of aggression. The threat of becoming international pariahs could deter Beijing's decision-makers. The Philippines would file a detailed communication documenting ramming, water cannon attacks, and blockades as crimes against humanity. The goals show these are systematic policies targeting Filipinos. Even a preliminary ICC investigation would put China under a global spotlight, reframing the issue as international criminal justice. This would rally support for the Philippines and isolate China diplomatically. An ICC case would create a legal record, countering propaganda and strengthening the Philippine narrative. The court becomes a platform for truth-telling, not just prosecution. In the battle for global opinion, the ICC is a powerful new front. Rejoining the ICC would send shockwaves through Manila, Beijing, and beyond. China would see it as a provocation, responding with fierce diplomatic protests and media attacks. The Philippines' allies, like the US, Japan, and Australia, would likely offer support, seeing it as a stand for international law. Domestically, the move would spark intense debate. Nationalists and human rights advocates would hail it as a defense of sovereignty. Pro-China voices would warn of economic risks and escalating conflict. The decision would mark a major shift in foreign policy, aligning the Philippines with nations upholding global rules. But it would also lock the country into a more confrontational stance with China. The choice would define the nation's path for years to come. The idea of using the ICC against China isn't new. In 2019, Philippine officials filed a case accusing Chinese leaders of crimes against humanity in the South China Sea. The ICC declined, citing lack of jurisdiction. China isn't a party, and the Philippines had withdrawn from the court. The court's reach is limited to crimes on member territory or by member nationals. The failed attempt exposed legal loopholes and jurisdictional gray areas. That's why rejoining the ICC is crucial. It restores jurisdiction over Philippine territory and future incidents. Any new aggression causing harm within Philippine waters could then fall under the ICC's purview. The lesson: active membership is essential for a successful case. A legal confrontation with China carries real economic risks. China is a top trading partner and major investor in the Philippines. If the Philippines pursues Chinese officials at the ICC, Beijing could retaliate with trade barriers, sanctions, or investment freezes. Filipino farmers and exporters, especially in agriculture, would be hit hardest. Infrastructure projects and tourism could also suffer. China's economic pressure is designed to force Manila to reconsider. Policymakers must weigh sovereignty against the economic pain ordinary Filipinos might face. The pro-China camp will argue for pragmatism and stability. The debate is as much about economics as it is about law and security. The ICC decision forces the Philippines onto a tightrope, balancing law, security, and economic survival. Rejoining the ICC affirms a commitment to a rules-based order and aligns the country with democratic allies. An ICC case could galvanize security partners and increase deterrence but risks escalation at sea. Economic retaliation from China could hurt jobs and investments, demanding careful mitigation. The government must craft a holistic strategy, integrating law, security, and economic resilience. This could mean rejoining the ICC while pursuing back-channel diplomacy and diversifying trade. Strengthening alliances and preparing support for affected industries are key. The choice isn't just about the ICC, it's about the nation's future strategy. Every step must be calculated, as a misstep could have lasting consequences. The stakes, the Philippines' security, prosperity, and place in the world. The ICC debate is a moment of national soul-searching for the Philippines. Will the country prioritize pragmatic accommodation with China, or stand firm on international law and sovereign rights? Rejoining the ICC would echo the spirit of people power and the 2016 arbitral victory, defining the Philippines as a champion of rules and rights. Staying out would signal a focus on economic survival and strategic patience. The nation stands at a crossroads, with the West Philippine Sea reflecting its turbulent choices. The ICC decision is a proxy for a larger debate about destiny and identity. The choice will reverberate for generations, shaping what it means to be Filipino. The stakes are not just territorial, they're about the very character of the nation.